Today, let's take it back to basics. A concept that's incredibly simple, but incredibly difficult to master. Today on Better Drinks, we're going to balance cocktails. Welcome to Better Drinks. Better do. Let's begin with the sour style cocktail. Now this type of drink has 4 different components that all add up to the balance of the cocktail. There's the sweet component, the sour component, the spirit component, and dilution. And all 4 of those components need to be playing together in harmony for the drink to taste good. Let's talk about sweet and sour ingredients first. The most common sweet ingredient in this type of cocktail is simple syrup. And it's simple for a reason. It's literally equal parts sugar and water dissolved together. Now, this is gonna equate to a 50 Brix solution. Brix is the measurement of dissolved sugars in a solution. So 50 Brix is just 50% sugar. It's equal parts sugar and water. So let's make a 50 Brix syrup right now. We've got 100 grams of sugar. To that, we're going to add 100 grams of water. But I'm also gonna demonstrate something fun and interesting. If you don't have a scale handy, but you've got your sugar measured out already, or you have a known quantity of sugar, water is 1 gram per milliliter. So I'm gonna measure 100 milliliters of water, and that's gonna equate to exactly 100 grams. 100 mils of water go in, and the scale reads 200. A lot of people think that you need to cook simple syrup. It's simply not necessary. You just have to stir it or shake it until it's fully dissolved. This would be a great time to cut away because it takes like a minute for it to be fully dissolved. Once you've got the sweet component covered, it's time to talk about a sour ingredient. Traditionally, there are really only 2 candidates for the sour ingredient in a cocktail, either fresh lime juice or fresh lemon juice. The reason that they work so well is because of a concept called titratable acidity. That's the perceived sourness of a juice on your tongue. Lime and lemon sit at right around 6% titratable acidity. Orange juice, on the other hand, sits right at 2% titratable acidity. That's why drinks shaken with orange juice lack that brightness, that punch that you need to have a really delicious shaken style drink. You can fix orange juice with acid powders, but we'll save that for another much more complex episode. Today I have lime juice and simple syrup. So when you've got 6% titratable acidity and 50 Brix syrup, those 2 things in equal parts will always balance. Let's move on to my favorite component of a sour style cocktail, the spirit. Today we've got BEEFEATER gin. It's got this black pepper note that's really lovely and bright acidic shaken drinks. I think it makes a beautiful gimlet. So that's what we're gonna make today, a classic gimlet. Let's talk about ratios. Sour drinks are like any other cocktail, they're very personal. It's about understanding what you like. Do you want a sweeter cocktail? Do you want a more tart drink? Today I'm gonna make a very classic, straight ahead, balanced version. I might personally like a little more acid, but today we're gonna go very classic. It's going to begin with 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup. To that, as we said, equal parts, we're going to add 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice. I think that the best balance for a drink has 2 full ounces of foolproof spirit. So, 2 ounces of BEEFEATER gin goes in the shaking tin. So, 2, 3/4, 3/4 with a foolproof spirit, 50 Brix syrup, and 6% titratable acidity. That's gonna be perfectly balanced once it's diluted. People don't often think about the most important component of every cocktail. It's water. We put 2 ounces of gin in this, but as soon as I've shaken this 3.5 ounce build is gonna get an additional 2 to 2.5 ounces of water added to it. Shaking as a component of balance. If you can, you're gonna wanna get big, freshly made, hard from the freezer cubes of ice. You don't want this, you know, soft, wet, sad ice. Sometimes it happens at events, but we make do. So, take your small tin and fill it all the way to the brim with ice. It should be sticking out over the top, just like this. You wanna use a lot of ice. Take that large tin and seal it right over the top. But before we shake, there's one really important component: chill the coupe. It's as simple as adding ice and water to the glass. All right, we're ready to shake. And shake this harder than you've ever shaken anything in your life until it's so cold that your hands can't take it anymore and you wanna throw it or drop it or put it away. Now, I like to shake with one hand, but for beginners, I really recommend getting your right hand on that small tin, your left hand or non-dominant hand on that big tin. Really go for it. See how frosty that tin is? Now close the gate on your Hawthorne strainer and strain into a coupe. And it's gonna fill that coupe up perfectly. It's a 5.5 ounce coupe, and it's gonna be just at the meniscus there with a big, beautiful, frothy head on top. That's a gimlet, and that's how to balance a sour style cocktail. That's better drinks. Balance isn't a concept that's limited to sour style shaken drinks. It's also wildly important for stirred cocktails. Let's use the format of a classic Manhattan to talk about balance in a stirred drink. Stirred drinks generally also have somewhere between 3 and 4 components. Often a bittering agent, in this case Angostura, a modifier, in this case sweet vermouth, and then the spirit component, and then of course, the most important ingredient, as we discussed before, water. That dilution is so important in stirred drinks because you really want that luscious, silky mouthfeel, and that has a lot to do with the level of sweetness, the amount of alcohol, and the amount of dilution that you have. So in shaken style sour drinks, there's a lot happening. There's the bright acidic component, the sort of bombastic, high sugar sweet component. Those two things aren't necessarily masking the character of the spirit, but there's a lot to bolster, you know, whatever spirit you want to use. In a stirred style cocktail, the character of the spirit, in this case Rabbit Hole Rye, is really gonna shine through. There's not a lot for it to hide behind. It's really just being accented by the additional ingredients. The character of the grain is gonna shine through in this one. Let's talk about a Manhattan. It's gonna start with, we're gonna go 7 dashes out of this dasher. A note on dashers. Depending on how full the bottle is and how small the top is, this could be anywhere from 1 big dash right out of the bitters bottle to as many as 10 from a really, really fancy, fine Japanese dasher bottle. So it's about knowing how much bitters you like and knowing how much volume you're getting out of each dash. We're gonna add a sweet vermouth now. Now, a good sort of general ratio for sweet vermouth and whiskey in a Manhattan is 1 ounce of sweet vermouth and 2 ounces of the spirit. Think about it like this. The vermouth is the modifying agent. It's not the star of the show, it's the supporting cast member. You know, there's no small parts. Vermouth may just be a supporting cast member, but it still plays a wildly important role. 1 ounce of sweet vermouth goes in that mixing glass. So at this point, we've got the bittering agent and the modifier taken care of. Now we're gonna add 2 ounces of spirit. So if you wanna change this up, if you wanna swap out the vermouth for, you know, make a perfect Manhattan, do a 1/2 ounce of dry and a 1/2 ounce of sweet. You know, that's perfectly viable. You have so many options, but a really nice rule of thumb in a stirred style drink is the total build should be around 3 ounces. Let's give this a stir. Once again, 5.5 ounce coupe. There's 3 ounces of liquid in the mixing glass. So you're gonna add, 2 to 2.5 ounces of water. Fill that mixing glass all the way to the top with ice. All of the ice that's in contact with the liquid, while you're stirring that, that's the ice that's working. But it's gonna melt down, so you wanna always have more ice than the level of the liquid. It's gonna make sure that the drink is colder, and it's gonna make sure that it's properly diluted. Chill your coupe. And now, a note on stirring. A lot of people try and spin a bar spoon between their thumb and forefinger when they start stirring cocktails for the first time. Your thumb's not gonna do any of the work. It's a push and a pull motion, and I like to put it in between my ring and middle finger. So, take the back of the spoon, press it against the interior of the mixing glass. It's a push with these 2 fingers, and a pull with these 2 fingers. See how everything spins beautifully in the glass? The back of the spoon is remaining pressed against the interior. That's perfect stirring technique. Now at this point, where all of that ice has liquid touching it, I'm gonna add a couple more cubes. So I know you're thinking, Jack, when is this drink gonna be done? And the thing about stirred cocktails is there isn't a rule of thumb, because it's all based on how hard the ice is, how fresh it is, how many cubes you're using, how high proof the spirit is. So these are all components that you'll just have to play with, and eventually you'll master. I always like to look at how frosty my mixing glass is getting. When it gets really cold and there starts to be condensation on the outside, that's when I know it's just about done. So I'm gonna give this a few more turns. And that color's lightening up, and it should be good to go. Looks beautiful, right? So a garnish on a stirred cocktail should always enhance the components that are already present in the glass. Traditionally, you'd use a brandied cherry for this, but with the spiciness of Rabbit Hole Rye, I want to add a little bit of brightness, a little bit of zip, and also additional roundness. I'm gonna go for an orange twist. Also, you're a lot more likely to have an orange or a lemon lying around at home than you are to have a really expensive jar of fancy brandied cherries. So, save those for the bar and use a twist at home. It's about really getting that oil on top of the glass. I like to give it a little wipe so that you get the oils on your fingers, you touch your guests, you have a conversation, the citrus oils are moving around the room, everyone's having a great time, everyone smells good, it's a lot of fun, you're having a party, wow, so much great, so fun, wow, it's amazing. There you have it, a gorgeous Manhattan. Rich, luscious, full-bodied, great mouthfeel, silky texture, everything you want in a stirred cocktail. Delicious. Take these concepts of sour style drinks and stirred cocktails and play with them. Make them your own. You don't have to use gin, lime, and simple syrup. You can use any 50 brick syrup. You can use any 6% titratable acidity juice. There are so many options. Now that you have this template to play with, you can make whatever drink you want and whatever flavor combination you want. Same goes for stirred cocktails. Maybe you like a little bit of coffee flavor in a Manhattan. Maybe you want to add a 1/4 ounce of Kahlua to this. There are so many ways to play, but if you remember to use 2 ounces of spirit, 1 ounce of sweet modifiers, and a few dashes of a bittering agent, it's a great template to play with. You can make these cocktails your own. If you've got questions about balancing cocktails, please don't hesitate to reach out in the comments. We would love to hear from you. Who knows, if you send me a fun recipe, maybe it'll end up on a future episode. Thank you so much. This has been Better Drinks.